On May 2nd, 2026, people from various parishes in the diocese attended a mass and a tour of a farm practicing regenerative farming. The farm is owned by Deacon Chad Shields, who gave the homily and also conducted an educational tour of the farm and its practices.
So creation itself is proclaiming life, hallelujah. And yet, a field doesn't come to life because struggle disappears. My family will attest, there's a lot of death that happens on farm, even in the springtime. A lot of uncertainty, whether it's rain or good weather. And I said, this is not separate from our faith. This is the pattern of our faith. And that matters for how we live. Because if Christ is risen, then this world matters. If Christ is risen, then creation is not disposable. If Christ is risen, then how we treat the land, one another, is part of our response to the gospel message. And as Pope Francis reminds us in Laudato Si, creation is not something we own. It is something entrusted to us. And more the Church, and even in our own diocese, has been recognizing something very important. That when we lose touch with creation, we begin to lose touch with the Creator. Because the world is not just something God made, it is one of the ways He chooses to reach us. It is one of the original encounters of the divine. And when we care for it, when we slow down enough to notice it, to tend to it, that's not just good practice and stewardship. That's love. And that's really why we're here today. Not just to learn something new, but to see more clearly and to listen more carefully and maybe encounter God in a way that we've been missing.
To begin the tour presentation, Deacon Chad Shields went down to where the cattle were kept to open the gates and allow them to join us. Normally, the gates would already be open and the cows would be waiting here. In regenerative farming, cattle are only allowed to graze on a particular section of land for a time before being moved to another section. The cattle seem to learn the grazing pattern and therefore wait to be admitted to the next section of land.
Hey, cows, come on. Well, come on. Hey, cows, come on.
Hi, Claiborne. What's that?
Hey, cows, come on. You're all right. We got a couple stragglers. We have a total of 7 calves right now. And one's come through. Let me grab this earpiece while they're coming through.
This is electric too when it's turned on.
Yeah, when it's turned on, this is electric also. All right. John, did you want me to take this one off my...
Just leave it on. Just let it run.
Chow's on. Look at him.
I think they need some improvement.
Hey. Hey, cows. I'm gonna turn that off for a second. Well, come on. Hey, cows, come on.
Oh, the cat's going the other way.
All right, I've got... So they're going to be calling back. I'm going to have to yell a little bit because the moms are going to be calling the calves. Calves are going to be calling mom. And Mark, I'll put this back on once they come through. I'm afraid that speaker is just going to be a bit too much for them, especially with all the folks right now. So what I really wanted to show here is, listen, this is not, meant to be all a farm day. We're certainly going to talk about wildlife as well, and I've got to make sure I keep track of time. We can have all those in-depth conversations about rotational grazing. Mark has always, advocated for the docuseries Roots So Deep. There's several out there that are really great in talking about carbon sequestration that comes through rotational grazing. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a mental snapshot. This paddock that they're coming out of, you can see it's pretty beat up, not a lot of grass. Here, sweetie. That's called a sacrifice paddock, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we actually talk about grass. But what I wanted to talk about today as it relates to this connection between liturgy, can everybody hear me okay? Okay, good. Between liturgy and the land and kind of just good stewardship. I said on a good day, I deliberately kept the cows from having full access to this paddock so that I could show you that they come when they call. But on a real good day, they're already standing at the gate waiting for rotation. So they would have been right here at these rocks had I not forced them to stay a little bit further back. So this idea of push versus pull, right? When I was a kid, again, being a suburbanite, I always thought of the Western movies. It's cracking whips, it's riding horses, it's hooting and hollering. Is that what y'all observed? No. Right? So when we think of pushing, when we think of driving animals, we think of noise. We think of pressure, fear, and urgency. But when we're pulling an animal, when we're leading an animal, there's trust, there's desire, there's familiarity, and more importantly, there's expectation. So these animals don't have to be forced to do something, especially when the systems that they're a part of are healthy. They learn the voice, they learn the rhythm, and they learn the gait. Remember that word, right? It's in our readings lately. Yeah. They anticipate the move, even before I'm out here or my kids are out here. They want the next pasture. It doesn't matter. I'm going to tell you it's going to be the same thing. You'll have to take my word for it tomorrow morning. This grass will still be here, but some reason that grass is better, right? So they're always going to anticipate the next move. And so from a gospel lens, when we think of John, specifically, we've been hearing a lot in Easter time, the sheep hear my voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them. And this is the same way with my daughter and the sheep too. And this is not incidental imagery. This is revolutionary, right? It's Jesus does not describe himself as the one who drives, but the one who draws, who pulls. God does not primarily convert by pressure. God converts by attraction, beauty, and love. The Christian life is not meant to be managed by fear or by strong-arming, but by desire rightly formed, right? So if we think that the Christian life, if we can imagine spreading the Christian message, the gospel, in the same way that we just moved healthy livestock, it's not because we're making people do something, but because we're offering them or telling them there's something better ahead, right? And we can apply this in 3 specific directions. When I think for our personal spiritual life, we can ask questions like, what is currently pushing me to do the things that I do in my faith tradition? Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it some sense of obligation? Or are we actually, what are the things that might actually be pulling us? Those things of beauty, peace, and truth in our lives. And so a gentle challenge when you all part ways after today is, if prayer feels like it's being driven, then something is off. If you feel like you're having to go because somebody is behind you with a stick, remember the Good Shepherd leads in the way that awakens desire. Next, the liturgy. And I think this is what's so fantastic and so rich about having Mass out here today. And I was, Father Sam and I were talking about, well, maybe it'd be easier at Christ the King, it's close by. And I was like, but the liturgy didn't end and then we went to something else. It continued, it just changed forms. Because there isn't that coercion up there. There isn't the manipulation up there. And there wasn't entertainment up there. It revealed something so real, good, and beautiful that it drew all of us to it, right? And just like the farming thing, liturgy doesn't push us towards God. It unveils what is worth going to. It pulls us in. And when I think of the silence, minus the animal sounds, it creates space for that attraction. Reverence, when we get out and we make time to be outdoors, signals something worth approaching. And then finally, and especially as a convert myself and dealing with people that joining the Catholic faith in this Easter season, OCIA, is like repetition of the Mass builds familiarity, right? To a kid, it's like, same thing, it's boring. I was like, nah, it's like the gate, it's like the voice, it's the rhythm of the farm. We all are creatures of habit. And so this can help strengthen our walk. Then if we take the imagery even more, of being pulled into evangelization and our mission as Christians to the rest of the world, we just always have to be cautious that sometimes our programs can push people. Our arguments can push people. Our guilt and shame can push people. But our holiness, our virtue attracts people. Our joy attracts people, and peace attracts people. So people are rarely argued into the kingdom of heaven, but they are often drawn by a life that looks and has found, in our sense, good pasture. So again, the routine is not boring, it's formative. It's the same voice. The animals do better if you can get it the same time of day. So, like same thing with Mass, right? We don't change that up, and it's the same gate. It builds that trust. And so think of those daily prayers, the weekly Masses, and the liturgical seasons. They're not obligations, they're simply the rhythms for us to help recognize the shepherd's voice. So closing image at this station before we go on to the next one is, the question isn't how hard is God pushing me, but where is he gently drawing me? Because God's grace doesn't drive, it draws. Okay, so that's enough probably to reflect on the whole day, but we got two more. What I'm going to do at this point, if anybody feels venturous or sure-footed, we're going to walk up. Actually, right here, we're kind of going to shift your focus. You can walk out here. I'll stay up here to talk. That way, not everybody has to. But after I'm done talking the next station, we're going to walk up through the woods. We're going to skirt a little path along the fence, and then we're going to come back down over here. Everybody else that wants to stay on the main road. Where's my daughter? Did she already relocate? Okay. There's another gap. When I say gap, I mean these right here, where we create gates. Just past the cars. I don't know how far the cars go down, but you'll stop and wait for me there and socialize if you don't want to go through the little walk through the woods. A couple things I should probably, at least for time's sake, do a couple quick questions. I don't want to get too bogged down, but about cattle or about what they saw. And how many people have grown up on a farm or have ever seen rotational grazing? And okay. All right. Huh?
Not grown up on a farm, but seen.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave these gates open because moms will come back looking for their calves. I don't think, was anybody counting while I was talking? Just one?
Yeah, there's a whole
So,
bunch down
so when we move, then they'll feel it's safe to come across. Yeah, okay. So rotational grazing, its basic premise is to try to mimic what happened in the wild before, our species started throwing up fences and confining animals, which is what we'll talk a little bit about grass management in the last station. But essentially, you'll hear a lot of speakers talk about the wild bison and how they would come through in droves. We call it intensive rotational grazing. You'll hear mob grazing. It's putting a lot of animals in a concentrated area so that you get a more uniform graze and not selective eating, right? So if we all go to a buffet, we're all like, oh, we're gonna pick the favorite things that we want and not eat the vegetables. So this kind of helps with the management, and then you gotta get the animals off. That is the key, and that's what I'll talk about over on the third stop. Okay, so what you can't probably have a whole lot of appreciation for, when I point out here, you probably just see woods. But when a couple years after being on the farm, we worked out a project. It was a kind of a trifecta. So it was private landowners, it was the Department of Forestry, it was the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and I'm trying to remember if there was another one. And we called it edge feathering. And what basically they did, so that was like a hard line, and we took 50% of the canopy trees out for the first 25 yards, and then took 25% of the canopy out for the next 25, allowing more light to come in and allow some undergrowth. But edges, and all of you that are just, like me, that geek out about ecology and healthy planet, edges are the places in biology that are the most resilient, they're the most biodiverse, and they're really the most fascinating places for scientists to study. So some things you can think of as pasture and woods, right? So we may not know it, but that's why when we go through the walk in the woods and we change our perspective looking back out here, it looks differently. But that's where the deer are gonna have some final protection before they decide if they're gonna come out into the open. Other edges, riverbanks, right? Where the ocean meets the earth, coral reefs. And so with this concept of edges being so full of life, I started to ask myself, what are the edges in our liturgy as Catholics? And I don't just mean symbolic, I mean like really. And what's interesting is the liturgy itself, the Mass that we just did, is the edge. Because it's where we would say in biology, it's where two ecosystems or two environments are coming together. But in the Mass, two worlds, meaning this world and heaven, are overlapping. Time and eternity are touching at the Mass. The visible and the invisible meet there. What we see, bread, wine, people, becomes the point of what you cannot see. The grace, the communion of saints, Christ's sacrifice. So we can think of the altar as a riverbank or as a shoreline. And like that shoreline or that riverbank, it's not fully one thing or the other. It's where the divine floods the ordinary matter and where human offering is taken up to God. I mean, it's amazing, right? I always think of like the capillaries too, oxygen exchange in the lungs. So the edge, and then another one for us, I think, is in the Benedictine kind of fashion, is between work and worship, right? So most people separate these two things. We're Christians on Sundays, and then we're at whatever our occupation is Monday through Friday. The edge here is where ordinary labor becomes offering. We're feeding animals, planting seeds, or building fences, socializing, with, where's Caleb? Caleb and Mark, like those that are over here, fellowshipping, not by adding words, but by the intention of what we're doing. And so that rule of St. Benedict really kind of resonates, for me, in this idea that the fertile is because it prevents both two things: work from becoming empty productivity, and the other is prayer from becoming detached from reality. The other one is the edge between order and wildness. Okay, now my children challenge me on this all the time, right? I expect a certain amount of order, and they're just, striving to be more feral. But I think this one maps out beautifully onto the ecology and the spirituality of life in general. Because if we have too much order, so let me tell you what that looks like. That's clear-cutting woods. That's monocropping forms, or, only raising one type of crop. We have no resilience. So too much order ends up being sterile, becomes weak. But too much chaos equals destruction also. So there's somewhere in the middle, that edge, that ecotone, and where resilience explodes. So spirituality has to do the same thing. Like when we're participating in liturgy, we have to remember that structure, the doctrine and the discipline, we need that, but we can't have just that. We have to have the freedom to allow the Spirit to move in our lives and the personal encounters and just the creativity of who we are individually, right? And the church, I think, at her best lives there. Not rigid, not formless, but alive. Because holiness grows best at the edge between structure and surprise. And on a farm, there's definitely quite a bit of surprises. The last one that I want to mention is the edge between death and life, the Paschal mystery. This might be the deepest one in my reflection, because Christian life always happens at these boundaries that we just don't ever understand. We rehearse the language, we talk about it, but when push comes to shove, it is just too beyond us. And Jesus himself names this in the gospel, specifically in chapter 12, in the Gospel of John. The grain of wheat must fall and die. So the edge is repentance, surrender, sacrifice, and trust. Not comfortable places, but incredible, fertile ones. So if you want to walk with me, I'm going to skirt this fence up to the wood line, and we're just going to do kind of a U and come right back to the same road. The rest of you, especially with the wagon, and don't worry, I'm not going to say anything too spectacular out there. It's mostly just to look back out this way. And then stand in the shade over there while you're waiting for me. You're going to have that tree canopy on the curve of the road. And then we're going to go out to where the sheep are. And while you're distracted with bouncing lambs and pigs squealing and all those things, I'm going to try to talk about grass. And then maybe by then my sous chefs will be ready for us. Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so the fence isn't hot. You have two options. You can either do the whole like mark, like a gentleman, push one line down, hold one up, and you can step through. And we'll walk that way, and then everybody else, I'll just meet you. Again, you're looking for the next one of these slinky gates, just down yonder. Any questions?
I was going to say, it looks easier to go through there.
You can. Come step over this.
I'm just going to take the camera with me.
Oh, you're going to walk? Okay.
I'll take the wagon. So
Okay. It's not quite chigger season and not quite tick season, but if you get one, it's free. And I can't be blamed. Have your significant other check you later. That's okay. We can walk back in there later too if you want to, Mark. All right. So we're also going to go over this white line, or you can skirt through here, folks, either one. And that single strand, so these cattle are trained to this polywire most of the time. Now they'll figure out long enough, if I had to power off for a couple days, they'll eventually figure it out. But for the most part, they think that it's hot, and so one strand will keep them in. You don't need layers upon layers of fencing. All right. So as we walk through the edge, that's kind of what I want you hopefully paying attention to, is just if you can see the difference in the density of the canopy. Not only did we fall some trees, but we would do what they call a hack and squirt, right? So that's where you gird a tree, either put some kind of chemical that is going to kill them over time. And the reason is, I asked the biologist this. I was like, why do you want to do that? He said, because dead trees provide habitats for different creatures, nesting birds, bats, and sorts of things. And so they're not going to use a live tree, but they're not going to use a dead tree on the ground either. So this kind of offers a staggering effect where the trees are falling in a more natural form, right? So like, unless a tornado comes through, we're not going to lose. And careful your footing, this is not going to be as smooth as up here as we get into the woods. But so to mimic that natural tree fall, which is staggered and not, all at once. So you'll see some trees that are either on their way out or halfway down or all the way on the ground. And I might as well use the walking time to point out a couple other things. As a kid growing up in suburban America, I was like, man, this needs to be mowed, right? Like a week ago, maybe two. But honestly, we want grasses to be as tall as possible. And so out here, I always laugh. I was like, my unit of measure is if I can touch seed heads as I'm walking, then I'm I'm where I want to be. Yeah.
This is just all not, you just let this go wild.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nice.
We haven't sprayed. We haven't sprayed any chemicals of any kind. That's not true. There's one project where we were trying to establish some cool season grasses on a different part of the farm. But no fertilizer, nothing. So no artificial inputs.
Is your, not just your, but the methods that you're using with the other area farmers?
For the older generation of farmers, it takes a little bit more convincing. You get a lot of, well, that's not how Grandpa did it. But much like religion, I don't feel like I need to sell somebody a Buick and convince them they should do it this way. So when they, really what talks to farmers is income, right? So when I get opportunities to actually open my financial books and say, here are my input costs, and they're like, what? How? And I was like, because we're not burning diesel needlessly. Fertilizer is a huge expense. And that's when they start to go, oh. But you have to change your perspective, because we've gotten so used to, like, we want uniformity, right? I mean, just drive through any neighborhood, and it's not a bad thing at all. I mean, Mark can attest, it keeps you in business when people want the manicured lawns. But for farming, in order to get a hay field or a pasture field to look like that uniformity, I mean, it's expensive. And so they have to see past the rough edges, you know, the not so tidy fence rows, the stickweed and ironweed and all that growing up in pasture that, you know, to them is unsightly, or they do. I mean, farmers will drive by and they'll look at somebody else's hayfield and they'll judge it, you know, they'll be like look at that. And that's okay. You know, some of them come here and they're like, yeah, makes them twitch a little bit. Yeah.
Then you show them your books.
Well, it's kind of a weird, like, hey, let me show you my finance, you know. But when it's appropriate or when it makes sense. For all you brave souls that are out here venturing in the woods with me, welcome to my office. No, actually, Caleb gets to spend more time here than I do. When it's time y'all are cut loose, you can go through any of these fences, walk any of these trails if you feel so motivated. But at least coming out here with me the first time, I'm saying, yeah, this is all fine. If you hit water, you need to stop and turn back. If you go south and you hit barbed wire, you should probably turn around and come back. And I think I'm trying to remember what's to the north, but I don't think. Anyway, that's all past the house, we're kind of to the right of where we were sitting facing for Mass.
What's the water there?
That's Norris Lake.
Oh, okay.
So Norris Lake is, man-made reservoir.
I didn't know it was a river.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, technically that's Big Sycamore if we wanted to get technical. It dumps into the Clinch, which then is the second, you know, that and the power of the feeders for Norris. So the first of TVA's lakes, by the way, for any useless trivia about hydroelectricity and American feats of engineering. All right.
Cool.
Yeah. So here's a good spot looking back out at the pasture, right? And you know, when you stop and you're still, if you come out here with a lawn chair and just kind of watch, you'll see, your eyes will pick up movement naturally, but you'll see the cattle coming in and out. The sheep will come up here into the woods too. But yeah, it's cooler, right? We're not standing in the sun, so the animals like that, having that option as well. Different species browse differently. Most of what I have are ruminants, so they prefer the grass, but if you start to get into goats in particular, They're going to love anything that they can reach greenery this way. In fact, they would prefer the roughage, over the actual grass. The same with the swine. The pigs like to come up in the woods and root around a little bit. All right, come on through. Hey, people. Hey, people, come on.
Like, what's the response?
Yeah. There's a lot of responses, Shannon. Yeah.
Tell us the meaning of the church, I mean the farm, the name.
From the wedding of Cana.
Oh,
The first miracle in the Gospel of John, turning 6 stone jars of water into wine.
So now, you can explain the 6 stone jars for
That's what I was just saying. It's the first miracle in the Gospel of John, Jesus turning 6 stone jars of water to wine at the wedding at Cana. Little.
And so you do that here too?
I wish. Yeah. Hey, actually, y'all don't know. I'm secretly recruiting the next wave of. Was there other people back in the woods, or were you the last one, Jim?
I think so.
Okay.
You didn't see anybody.
They did come all through? There should be, 7 of them. If we close the actual slinkies, the new ones you put on there, that should be perfect. We don't need to rely on that little white line anymore, is what I'm saying. And then the gap going down the road, if we open those back up too, in case people exfil that way. Okay. Thank you, Caleb.
Your land over here, this wooded area.
Oh yeah, the property goes back past the 94. Yeah. Just 30? I'll cut you a deal. Only a 20% bump. I'm just kidding. All right, we're gonna make our way this way, folks. Mark, you want me to drag that wagon?
Oh, also called yellow.
Here, let me, I'll pull the wagon for a minute.
Well, you're the one I gotta be focused on.
We'll just tell everybody in the recording, like, well, he was pulling the wagon.
Maybe, so he can.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to put the little headset back on, or you feel like we're doing all right with this recording?
Oh, that's great.
Okay, perfect.
Better than when I
Well, I feel like
have a buzz in it, yours not. Head on down.
I'll get the road commission out here to make this smoother next time for y'all. She didn't let you? Where are they all right now? Huh?
I didn't want to stress him out.
That's fine.
We can still probably put Beauty or Coca.
Were you all just standing in the shade?
No, we were putting the pigs.
Pigs are over there?
Yeah, they're
Hold-
sleeping over there, and then Patch, Coke, and Beauty are over there.
Okay. All right. One more gate. You guys see? Routine, right? We're gonna get you trained up right before y'all leave here. Eh.
Phone numbers on the RFP. You didn't get phone numbers. You're not going to call us to help work after.
Well, maybe.
After we're trained up.
Maybe. Now,
The neighbor kids all been coming over.
We're gonna walk, they're all down off of this side of the hill, right? Okay, so I'm gonna start by saying we have a local airport. It's nearby. Wait just a second on that one. That's how Bishop Mark needs to get around. He was talking about like how big his diocese is. You're like, we could put his crest right on the tail fin, like, and a banner even. Yeah, that'd be cool. All right, so yes. Oh, you found some sheep hair. So we have haired sheep, Katahdins in particular. I don't have time to be shearing, and wooled sheep need to be sheared. As I mentioned before up on the driveway, my daughter is actually the shepherdess. She works the sheep more than I do. Sheep are prey animals. So it's not a petting zoo, so they're not gonna come, especially with all this people, it's a little bit more scary for them. But if you were to come out here and sit down like a fold-up chair, they're gonna eventually warm up to you or kind of come around and be less skittish. So what I would encourage you in just a minute when I'm done talking is you can kind of come down here to the edge of the hill, and they're all just below us and over here. And you'll start to see, the grass is so tall right now that watching the lambs bounce is about the only time that you get like a good picture at them. And we have how many lambs?
We have over 30 lambs.
30
Over 40.
that were born all within the last 4 weeks. So we time our breeding season so that we're having them kind of all at once. It's easier for us as managers that we're not like, oh, we didn't know that we should be keeping a little bit more of a watch out. So, but again, I can talk all day farming. I will let my daughter talk about sheep too while we're eating lunch, and when we come back out here, if you're so interested, anything about hoof trimming and all the stuff that she does to make sure that they're healthy. What's funny, some people are like, do they have mange? But as we just saw, and then Mary, what's your grandson's name? Harrison. Okay. Harrison handed me a clump. They, like dogs, they shed their winter coat. So they're in the process of sloughing it off. So you're going to see like half of them is sleek, and then it looks like a Viking haircut, you know? Or did they make you tincture back then? No, that was still before you, right? Okay. Yeah, weird shave spot, you know? But let me get back to at least the liturgy piece, because farming is cool by itself, but it's the real reason we're here. Is this reflection is more about what we don't see, okay? So if we had he draws us, and then our perception and changing and understanding the importance of edges, and now talking about what kind of goes unnoticed or unappreciated. Grass doesn't grow because animals eat it. It actually grows when it's given time to rest. That's the key to rotational grazing. It's not how many animals you put on or how long you put on that is as important as how long before animals come back to it. So it's really like, think about this, right? This will probably relate to everybody that's got a yard. You mow it in the springtime. When does it need to be mowed again? Like a week, right? Like boom, it goes. Well, same thing. If you can keep the animals off of this paddock for a week or 2 weeks, you're going to get that regeneration. Grass also has like a sliding scale effect. Once it gets about above 4 inches, it starts to really take off because it's using its solar power instead of focusing on the roots. I will tell you, especially somebody like me, a convert to farming, is you quickly realize that you're not a husbandry expert, you're not an animal expert, you're learning all those things, you're learning a ton of things, but what you have to learn to be successful is a grass manager. The land's almost perfectly with this biblical rhythm of the Sabbath, right? So especially in Genesis and the command to rest, even the land was commanded to do so. So what I refuse to rest, I eventually destroy. And that's true of my spiritual life as well. That's the importance of retreats, or any other time, making quiet time. Where am I overgrazing in my life, right? Constant output, no recovery, no downtime. My kids and my wife and I are always constantly like, we're always accusing each other, like, you're too busy, you're doing too much stuff. Well, pot calling the kettle black, but honestly, I think all of us feel that way. We get wrapped up in the quote unquote rat race. So do I treat rest as unproductive, right? Like any downtime is wasted, or is it essential for fruitfulness? Because it's the roots that we don't see here, and I'm not gonna like pull it up. There's plenty of videos and demonstrations for like assessing soil health, and looking at the microbiome. It's amazing. But it's what everything out here is based off of. The sheep eat grass, the pigs eat grass, the cows eat grass. And, you know, the only omnivores, I guess, technically the pigs, but the chickens, you know. And even they are going back through and scratching through the various cow patties. Symbiotic. Which brings me to my next point, where biodiversity, multiple species, not a single crop. And even out here, it kind of, you know, to maybe an untrained eye, it looks like just all grass, but there's really so many different species in here. This is mostly warm season. We got a lot of fescue, but you've got white clover, the buttercup farmers don't like. You'll see people spraying that. It's slightly toxic to animals, but this is what's in the soil bank and what's growing. And you'll start to like learn which plants indicate soil health. If you're to look out at these paddocks where you see like the brown, that's not dirt or washout. That's where hay bales were rolled over wintertime and animals were rotated. And you'll see as the grass starts to grow through it, it's actually a darker green than what's around them because of the carbon being distributed. But what's interesting about the animals and the variety is the parasites that affect sheep don't affect cattle. So as the cattle come through and they eat in a different way. How many people knew, I didn't know this, I was a suburbanite. Cows don't have upper teeth. Did anybody know that? Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I expect y'all to. They have a hard upper palate, but the way that their tongue, they sweep. If you were to, when you get done with lunch and walk out to see the calves again, because they all came across.
It's beautiful to listen to.
Yeah, their tongues kind of do the sweeping, grabbing motion. And if you've ever touched a cow tongue, you think a cat's tongue is rough, like a cow. Whereas sheep, you know, they have incisors. Like horses, they'll nip, so they can actually graze a little bit closer. But when a cow is taking up grass that's got, let's say, something like barber pole worm in it, it doesn't affect the cattle. So it reduces the parasite load for the sheep and vice versa. So multi-species actually is better for the animals. A lot of times we have them together, the cows and sheep and pigs, and everybody's one big happy quasi, right? There's no perfect family, but they usually graze together. We stopped doing that last year. Every year we were adjusting, lambs getting injured by some of the cattle. Unintentionally, bumped into by the water, stepped on in the shade or something like that. But lastly, so prayer, silence, scripture, right? These are the things that we find our roots in. Busyness without depth, you know, we're green for a moment and then we collapse. The other part is talking about that rotational grazing. The good shepherd always has us on the move, because if left alone, we overgraze. We have the same tendency. So our spiritual father knows that we need movement in addition to that rest. I think also talking about the biodiversity, it mimics the body of Christ, right? That God doesn't grow even in people monocultures. He grows communities. So different gifts, personalities, callings. And Father Sam and I talk about this all the time. You know, the classic, don't confuse unity with uniformity, right? They're not the same thing, but... and so for us, rest is planned in rotational grazing. It has to be. It's not accidental. It's built into the entire system. And so when God rests, he's not doing it because he's tired, but because creation as a whole needs it. And this echoes, I think, Christ's invitation in Matthew, come to me and I will give you rest, right? So last reflection point in here before we go up to eat lunch and they're ready for us is, do I schedule rest? Or do I just collapse into it, right? And what would it look like to rotate my life with intention? Well, I appreciate y'all coming out here. What's going to happen, we're going to go up there, we're going to eat and be happy, and then we'll answer all those side questions and fellowship a little bit more. I know Beth said she had to leave now, and that's okay. Leave when you have to, stay as long as you want. Maybe like a Catholic worker farm, if you're here past sundown, I'll provide you housing and food and then put you to work in the morning. But yeah, so if you got questions as we migrate back towards the house for food about sheep in particular, I'm sure Bryce would be happy to answer those now, and then a revisit out here. But you guys got to get some pictures with the lamb, so they're awesome. Okay.